A rough season for the New York Rangers has seen countless players fall short of expectations. That being the case, today we bestow the Zero Effort Award as voted on by you, the listeners.
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1274 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. And we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So doing something a little bit different here today, a little bit unique here today. We're basically creating an award to bestow upon one of the Rangers for what has been, by all accounts, by all eye tests, by every metric, by every stat, certainly by the Rangers' record and their playoff standing, a disappointing season, and a season in which a lot of players have fallen very short of expectations. I got to give a big time shout out to Tron for this idea. We premiered a new episode of Locked On Rangers a little while back. Tron was in the YouTube live chat, and this was his idea. Throw out an idea of, taking basically a census of Ranger fans and letting them decide who should be the award winner for the Zero Effort Award. Now, obviously, this is a play on the Stephen McDonald Extra Effort Award, which is, of course, on the opposite end of the spectrum. And, of course, we will do an episode not too long from now, a little bit later this week, the Stephen McDonald Extra Effort Award, where we actually read some comments from some of you guys as well for your pick for the Stephen McDonald Extra Effort Award winner. I'll have my thoughts on that as well, and that'll be a much more positive episode than this one, if we're being completely honest here. But with all that said, this is basically just a way for me to say thanks to you guys. It's your episode. This is mostly going to be your comments. I'll add my 2 cents along the way, but for the most part, there were a lot of Ranger fans that want to make their voices heard on this matter, and away we go here. We're going to basically do this player by player. Certain players got seemingly more votes than others, and I'm sure there's already some names in your head, and we'll start with a pretty obvious player here, and that's going to be Chris Kreider. And again, I'm just going to read comments that you guys left on the tweet when I asked everybody about who the winner of the Zero Effort Award should be. And we start with longtime listener Anthony Johnson. He says, Kreider gets no pass from me. He sucks. So Anthony keeping it very blunt there, but I like it. We've got Smickums who says, sad to say it's Kreider. Ricky Vaughn says Kreider. He brings others with him too. John Wellborn says, might not be the most popular choice, but I'm going to go with Kreider. He's looked checked out since we got rid of Goodrow and Trouba. I agree with pretty much everything there except for the part where you said that it might not be a popular choice. Believe me, it's a popular choice. We've got another vote for Kreider here from Boo, Molly, and Honey's dad. For those picking Kreider, I went to the game in Utah. We sat 8 rows behind the Rangers bench. I'd watch the players as they'd skate back to the bench after their shifts. Kreider looked like he just got finished walking the dog. No huffing and puffing, just casually chewing gum. I've talked about this too. It's not just Kreider here. The Rangers do everything slow, including when they change on the fly. I feel like as the games have gone on here, more people have kind of picked up on this, and we've seen the Rangers get burned for this with some goals against, or at the very least, some good opportunities for the opposition, all coming as the result of the Rangers lollygagging their way back to the bench. And I have no issues believing here that Kreider was one of the main culprits when this game happened in Utah, or really any game. This one comes from Yo-Yo. He says, or she says, whoever says, I'm going 20, obviously a reference to Chris Kreider, and it pains me, but he has this team hating the ownership after the Trouba trade. Tyler Mayorino says, gotta be Kreider, most veteran player, barely plays with any effort, and not even putting in shots or shooting at all, basically invisible. Sad thing is, I want this guy to be great and pick up the team and be a captain, but he needs to start showing more. Tyler, I think all of us have been looking for that. I think for a long time, if we're being completely honest. It's one thing when the Rangers decided to go with Trouba as the captain rather than Kreider, and in spite of everything that went wrong with Trouba, I think that probably was the right call. But you just want to see more as far as leadership goes, especially after Trouba was traded here and everything's falling apart. You want to see Kreider step up in more of a leadership role. And, we don't see everything that happens behind the scenes, but there's been nothing that would suggest that Kreider has indeed done that. So we'll keep everything rolling here. This one comes to us from Jim OD. Laf is stealing money. He should have been benched long ago. Kreider should have been threatened with waivers like Trouba. For a veteran with his standing, giving up like he did is reprehensible. Yeah, that's the most disappointing aspect from what we're getting from Kreider. This is at a time where maybe more than ever, this Ranger organization has really needed him to step up in terms of his on-ice play and certainly his leadership as well. And he just hasn't done it, at least not, well, certainly not the on-ice play. As far as the leadership, like I just said, we don't see everything that happens behind closed doors, but we see, these guys interacting, and there's just been no real evidence of him stepping up as a leader. This one comes from JD. Kreider refuses to do the necessary dirty work along the boards and corners, arguably one of the strongest players in the league, but his game has always been soft. This one comes to us from Gary Quinterno. Kreider, just watch. Sometimes it's the simple answers that I think are honestly the funniest and the most that are right on the nose. Just watch. This one comes to us from Is This Better? Chris Kreider, 4 assists, none of them primary. He's awful. It really is impressive how few assists he's racked up. And people will say, like, well, he's a power forward. I mean, if we can even call him that. Or, he's going to score goals or all this and that. This is a guy that is always on the top power play unit. And until about midway through the season or even longer has been in the top 6. The fact that this guy does not have a primary assist is absolutely insane. And he might get through the entire season without one. We will see. We got a comment here from offender numero uno, Christopher James. He has been completely non-existent for the majority of this season. Flashing moments aren't enough. What flashing moments? I think he was hurt. He was never named captain, especially post-Trouba exit, and his heart just isn't in it anymore. I don't think that last part is really true. I don't think he ever really wanted to be the captain, and certainly as soon as Trouba got traded, they were never going to just slap the C on somebody the second that, Jacob Trouba was out the door. I think at the very least, you were going to see this team wait until, this upcoming offseason. I think at that point, there's a good chance that they will name somebody then. This one comes to us from Lab M17. Christopher James Kreider, no explanation needed. Indeed. So we'll keep it going here. There are some other candidates. The next one is Mika Zibanejad. And I was kind of surprised that he didn't seem to get as many votes as I expected him to. I think the reason why, and some of you guys touched on this, is that the bar is so low. The fact that, Mika has stepped up in the past month or so and has played better than what he was playing early in the season, that probably saved him quite a bit. Because if I did this in like November, December, January, I think people would have buried Mika. I think Mika probably would have won this, but there weren't as many votes for him as he might have expected. Stephanie Jones says, no one thinks Zibanejad. And that's pretty much what I just got done saying there. Yeah, a very surprising lack of votes for Mika, but he got a few. RW3 said, Laf or Kreider, if Mika didn't wake up when JT Miller came along, it'd be him too. And yeah, that kind of goes back to what I just said as well. Mika has played better, and I think that saved him from getting a lot more votes than he ended up getting. Just the fact that he has stepped up a little bit recently. This one comes to us from Princess Bruley 13. Kreider or Mika? I'm shocked no one said it yet. I know Mika has been better lately, but his comment about how it's okay to play badly if you're winning, unacceptable, and it's not the first comment of his that's left a bad taste in my mouth. Yeah, Mika needs to go to PR school at the end of the season or something. I mean, he's got to work on his game clearly as well. And hopefully, a full season with JT Miller. We got to just hope for the best because he's got that full no move clause. I don't think he's going anywhere, but you do hope that, he comes back with a little bit more fire in his belly next year than what we saw, really for the whole first half of the season, 2/3 of the season, whatever it was. A couple of votes for Keandre Miller as well. This one comes to us from Kyle. Miller for the 4th consecutive seasons, and it ain't even close. I wouldn't go that far. Miller this year is certainly in the running. I was going to say maybe last year, but this shows you how far this team has fallen. There is no shortage of Ranger players that you could give this award to, the zero effort award. I have no idea who I would give it to last season. I mean, maybe Miller, but I didn't think he was that bad last season. He had some hiccups here and there, and there were times where maybe you wanted a little bit more physicality out of Keandre Miller, but I don't think he really played terribly last year, and he has not played well this year, and we'll just leave it at that. This one comes to us from Aaliyah. Miller hasn't done a thing at all for the past 2 years, just skates around, no defense. Yeah, there's some truth to that. I feel like a lot of Miller shifts are just kind of directionless and just, I don't know. It's like he's just out there until somebody tells him that his shift is over. Marshall F says Laffy or Key. Ex Yankee Grid says, okay, giveaway Miller. Yeah. Couple of votes for Adam Fox, but once again, I mentioned this with Mika a second ago. He didn't get as many as I was expecting for as many people that responded to this. I believe there were 175 different comments on this tweet that I threw out there on Twitter. So not as many Fox mentions as I was expecting. But Chris said Adam Fox then tied for second, about 7 or 8 more. And yeah, that says it all right there too. There are no shortage of candidates for this award. And then you've got TJ Smith 77. Zero effort is Fox, never battles, block shots, hustles, etc. He's been beaten to pucks by fourth liners all year. The worst body language in sports. If he's hurt, get it fixed. If not, he stinks. Yeah, Adam Fox, if we were giving out the worst body language on the Rangers award, and maybe we'll do that. Maybe when we get a little bit deeper into the offseason, the Rangers are still playing hockey here, so there's only so much time to spend on these things. But maybe if we get into the offseason, we'll do that one too. The worst body language on the Rangers, and he would certainly be in the running for it. Artemi Panarin only got 1 vote, and I wouldn't have Panarin too high on this list. There's times where he's been disappointing, and you'd like to see him step up a little bit more than he has this season. Cookie Man says, where do I start? My favorite Ranger, Chris Kreider, is number 1. Panarin has scored, but he never plays defense. He's always out there for 3-on-3s, and he's always the guy left behind, and he's slow to change. He gives no effort on defense. Yet defense has not really been Panarin's strong suit, especially this season. Other years, I thought he was just kind of okay defensively, not certainly like a tremendous liability, but, Panarin, one of many players. He's been great lately, but you just want to see somebody step up as a leader, and I don't think the guys wearing the letters have mostly done that, although I would not throw Panarin into the same group as guys like Mika, Kreider, Fox. They're the other 3 that are the alternate captains, and I just wouldn't put him on that level. But to each their own. We're going to keep everything rolling in just a second. There is one more player that got a metric ton of votes, and we're going to go through that next. And then there's also some people that couldn't narrow it down to just one player. They had to throw out a couple of players. So we'll get comments from them. And at the end of this episode, we're going to go ahead and present the actual award, decide who should take it home based on the votes from all of you. And we'll do all that good stuff, or I guess not so good stuff, in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. You can pick your favorites. We've all got our eyes on a couple of underdogs this year, and FanDuel makes it easy to back them with spreads, totals, and game props. Stay in the action. With tournament games happening almost every day, there is always something exciting on which to bet. It's easy and fast. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is also brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. Looking for a snack that is both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you, unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no shells variety. It is the perfect grab and go snack for busy days. The satisfying crunch of opening each shell, it is like snack meditation. Whether you're running between meetings or dropping off the kids, Wonderful Pistachios are the snack that works just as hard as you do. Get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. All right, let's go keep everything rolling here on Locked On New York Rangers. Big time shout out to the everydayers as always. We're going to have in our next episode a breakdown of the Rangers at Kings game. That will occur, of course, tomorrow on Tuesday at 10:30 p.m. We got a trio of late night games that all start at 10 p.m. or later. And then in the episode after that, after we break down the Rangers-Kings game, we're going to do an episode on the Stephen McDonald Extra Effort Award. We'll have some of your comments and some of my thoughts. And ultimately, we'll come to a consensus together on who should win the award this season. But for right now, Yeah, the zero effort award. We're going to keep this thing rolling here. And the player that I was talking about that also got an absolute ton of votes, the only player that could hold a candle to Chris Kreider here, at least in terms of the people that responded to my tweet on Twitter, was Alexis Lafreniere. And this one comes to us here, this first comment from Big Z35. Laffy. If Kreider wasn't injured all year long, it would be him, but he gets a pass. It's definitely Laffy. Boost says definitely Laffy. Dude is invisible. Tron, whose idea it was to do this very subject in the first place here, says Laffy. He got his bag and promptly shut it down. Yeah, I've said all along, it is very, very difficult to ignore the timing of when his play basically fell off a cliff. You had great season for Lafreniere last year. Really came into his own playing with Panarin and Trocheck all season. One of the best lines in the entire NHL. And then in the playoffs, one of the best and most dangerous Ranger forwards on the ice, pretty much night in and night out. A couple of highlight reel goals where he's going coast to coast against the Panthers. And I mean, that is not an easy team to do that against. He scored a goal, I want to say game 3 against the Panthers, where no joke, I mean, he got the puck in his own zone, went through the neutral zone, weaving around all these different Panther players. This team that's known for being a big, tough, physical team and obviously a defensively responsible team. And Lafreniere goes around all of them like they're not even there and gets to the net and scores a ridiculous goal. And we've just seen none of that this season, or very little of it, or at least none of it since he signed the contract. Like I said, the timing of that contract and his dip in play, impossible to ignore at this point. This one comes to us from Allie. Sadly, I have to go with Laffy. Sad because I like him, but he's been invisible all season. JF Lowy says, without question, Lafreniere, the guy I thought would be their captain, I thought would be a superstar. That's another thing, too. Like, whatever happened to the intangibles? Because when Lafreniere was coming into the league, and at the time, we didn't even know the Rangers were going to pick first. Obviously, they won the draft lottery. But there was all this talk, I mean, first of all, about how great of a player he is, and it's a can't-miss player, and he's going to be amazing, and all this stuff. But people also talked about the intangibles, the leadership that he brings to the ice. And a lot of us, I think as recently as last season, may have had Lafreniere pegged as the next captain of the New York Rangers. Where is any of that gone? I mean, I wouldn't even make him an alternate. I wouldn't even consider him as an alternate, at least not right now, at least not until he shows a little bit better than what he's been showing, again, ever since he signed that contract. We've got one here from NYCVJTT. Lafreniere, because you can count on one hand the number of games he appears to have been totally engaged. In the games he was engaged, I don't think it was every shift. We've got a comment from Hamoff. Easily Lafreniere, no one else comes close. See, that's one thing that I disagree with, because a couple of different people have said this about a couple of different players. No one else comes close. Whether your vote is for Lafreniere, for Mika, or for Kreider, or for Keandre Miller, or for anybody else, I think a lot of players come close. I think there's a lot of competition for this award. You can't single out one guy and say nobody comes close, because like I said, this season, there is a boatload of competition when it comes to this award. Scotty James says, Laffy got his money and has been a non-factor. He's never noticeable, just plodding away with mediocre play. It's sad considering what we saw from him earlier. Steve says, when we got the number 1 pick, I was praying for generational talent like Crosby, etc. Instead, we got Laff, who got a contract and coasted. Tom Lombardo has similar sentiments here. Laffy took the money and ran. The Goods says 13. Obviously, that's Lafreniere's number. 13, and it doesn't need to be explained. Then we've got Rangers for life here. This is interesting because this person actually copied and pasted their own Ranger tweet all the way back on January the 4th. This is what this individual said at that time. Nothing else needs to be tweeted if fans aren't going to call out Lafreniere. 1 goal in 20 games, put on power play number 1, nothing. Lazy effort on the back check. People will go on about Trouba or Mika, but Laff has easily been the biggest regression on the first line. Biggest regression? I mean, possibly, yeah. I wouldn't really say that Trouba regressed because I didn't think he was really that good last season. And obviously, he's, of course, no longer here. I don't know. I mean, Mika was a better player last year than this year. You could make the case for Mika. You could make the case for Lafreniere as far as biggest regression. I think Adam Fox would certainly be in there as well. Chris Kreider, I mean, you have to mention him. So there's some runnings. That's in a whole nother subcategory, and there's some Rangers in the running for that as well. Okay, now we're going to do a section here where we just talk about, or we just go over comments from people that are kind of random, kind of outside the box ideas here, and certain fans that couldn't narrow it down to just one player. So an interesting group here. We've got Bill Pepitone, who says Lafreniere, Kreider, Keandre, take your pick. Garden Grit says Kreider, Zibby, Laugh in that order. I blame Kreider and Zibby more for being veterans and creating this soft culture this team developed. You've got Brandon Mistero here, who says everyone with large contracts. That is that's a very broad answer, but you are not wrong. Heedle for Heart says Phil Housley. Yeah, that's kind of a dark horse there. I don't think we can. I should have specified ground rules. You know what? We can give it to somebody that's not a player. If you want to give it to Phil Housley, I can understand that. Look, he's the great defenseman, right? And he's the guy that's in charge of the defenseman and the blue line. And a lot of those defensemen, pretty much every Ranger defenseman has regressed this season. So I can understand him coming under fire for sure. James Cavallero says, 0 effort award needs to go to Phil Housley. Pretty hard to go all season without making any coaching adjustments to the defense. Yeah, I don't know if they're not making adjustments or if they're trying to and it just falls on deaf ears, but yeah, the Ranger defensemen have clearly not been good this year. Sherry says, sadly, Laffy or Keandre Miller, both great last year, but having awful years. Keandre Miller was good last year. I don't know if I would call him great. I thought he had a good season. Reliable top 4 defenseman. Nothing that gets you going too crazy, that gets you too mad. Lafreniere was fantastic last season, and both have obviously slipped very far this year. Thomas O'Brien says, got to go with Kreider here. No net front presence anymore. No forecheck. No nothing. Trocheck is a really close second. You've got Jets Rags Fanatic, who says Peter Laviolette. Yeah, I mean, he has not had a good year either. We'll just leave it at that. We've got Kayla Hartpence, who says, does the answer have to be a current player or can it be a former player from this year? It can be a former player. Why not? We didn't really set any ground rules there. As far as who she might be talking about, I would think probably Trouba or maybe Lindgren. I wouldn't give it to Lindgren, though, because as much as he struggled this year, I never thought it was a lack of effort. Trouba, though, certainly didn't look like he was putting in the old, college effort there, at least this season. I can't imagine she would be talking about guys like Kako or Heedle or like Mancini, guys that were traded away. So I would imagine that was probably directed at Jacob Trouba. Please let me know if I'm wrong. RI says Fox, Keandre Miller, Shesterkin, Mika, Kreider, and Laugh. So RI wants to split it between 6 different players. Tony says Laffy or Keandre with an honorable mention to Kreids, who gets some pass due to injury. The Cooler Queen says Keandre and Laugh. Walt MF3 says toss up, Kreider or Lafreniere, lack of results and heart. JG says, I'll say this, Cooley has definitely been a core player. Too much respect for Kreider to talk bad. Mika, on the other hand, can go. That's kind of interesting that, you'll go after Mika, but not Kreider. I guess with Kreider, it's just the fact that he's been here for so long and has been a part of so many Ranger teams that have done a lot of winning and made some deep playoff runs. And of course, Kreider has been to the Stanley Cup final with the Rangers, which nobody else on this team has been. Certain players maybe with other teams without going through the entire roster right now, but not with the Rangers. Joe says Drury. I think Drury's trying, but like I said, I've talked about this on the podcast, the last year and a half or so, I think has been the worst stretch that Chris Drury has had as the Ranger GM. Just a lot that we've gone through in the past. Not going to peel back every layer right now, but certainly when the offseason comes around, we will evaluate Chris Drury and the job he's done recently, and I can tell you it probably will not be pretty. C. Cal says, pick a name out of a hat, 95% chance you'll be right. I won't go that far, but I would say probably 3/4 of the team, if you pulled out a name and you looked at it, you could probably be like, yeah, you know what? I could see that player winning this award. Evan. Laugh and Mika because they suck. Anthony Giordano says, dry hair Mika or Chris the Mannequin Kreider for 0 effort. And maybe my favorite comment that I got through this whole thing, SMN237, the entire top 6 forwards for bringing back the circus to the Garden. I mean, it's been a while since the circus has been there, but apparently they're doing their best. So anyway, we're going to keep everything rolling just a second. We're going to go through a final top 5 here, the most deserving players for the 0 effort award. I'm going to mostly go with the results that you guys gave me. Like I said, I'll add my 2 cents along the way, but for the most part, man, this is your guys' award to give out. So we're going to come to a consensus in just a second. All right, we just want to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Gametime. There is nothing like watching live basketball. The energy of the crowd, the sound of sneakers on the hardwood, and maybe even a celebrity sighting at courtside. If you want to catch a game in person, Gametime makes getting tickets easier than ever. Gametime's new feature, Gametime Picks, filters out the fluff and shows you only the best deals on great seats so that you do not have to waste time searching through thousands and thousands of tickets. There's easy ticket shopping. If you check the Gametime app, you will find amazing deals on some huge matchups coming up. You've got super deals. Gametime Picks highlights the super deals, giving you the best bang for your buck. Peace of mind with seat views before you buy, no surprise fees, and a lowest price guarantee. You can book with total confidence. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime Picks. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It is Gametime. All right, let's go and keep everything rolling here on Locked On New York Rangers. We're going to conclude today's episode by officially giving out this award here on Locked On New York Rangers. And let me just say that I hope this award does not become an annual thing. Like I said a minute ago, I would have had a really tough time giving this award out last season. I don't know who it would have been, honestly. Like, who was out there? Forget about like a single game here or there. You know, in January last year, I know they kind of scuffled a little bit. Who was out there giving you less than an honest effort last season? I don't know who that would be. And this year, like I said, there's like 10 players you can make a case for. So here's the top 5. Number 5, I'm going to go with Adam Fox. He got a couple of votes in the response to my Twitter post. And like some of you guys have pointed out, like the body language from Adam Fox, even this most recent game that they won, he gave up a goal. He was on the ice for a goal. It was scored by Quinn Hughes. He had a really rough shift, did Adam Fox. And, you know, the goal goes in. He's immediately throwing his head back and just looking like somebody just kidnapped his dog. I mean, I don't know, man. Sometimes I think body language can be overrated. And then there's times like this where, no, it's not overrated at all. You got to be a little bit better than that, and a little bit stronger than that. Even if you do give up a goal, and even if you do have a rough shift. I mean, I guess it's nice that he cares enough to do that. But all right, let's kind of adult up here, and let's move forward and try to win this game. Number 4, I'm going to go Mika Zibanejad. I was honestly surprised by how few votes he got on this Twitter post that I made. But I think, again, like a lot of people mentioned, he probably got fewer votes because he has been better recently, the last month or so, give or take, however many weeks you want to go back. JT Miller playing with him, I think, has worked wonders for Mika Zibanejad. It hasn't been perfect since then, but I think Mika Zibanejad has benefited from JT Miller being on this team more so than any other player on the New York Rangers. But I think there are some people that are forgetting how awful he was at the start of the season. As I mentioned, we were going through all the different vote getters. I really think if I did this in November, December, January, Mika wins this in a landslide. But he has been better recently, and that's why he's not higher up on this list. Number 3, I'm going to go with K'Andre Miller. A couple of you guys mentioned him. Again, he's another one that I don't think got as many votes as I was expecting. But I just feel like his game has fallen off of a cliff this season, and I just don't get it. 2 years into his career, I thought we had a bona fide homegrown superstar on this roster, and we don't get many of those. There's a lot of swings and misses that the Rangers have had in the draft, specifically in the first round, whether it's guys that never should have been drafted in the first place or guys that just don't become nearly the players that you would expect them to become. It hasn't been good. It hasn't been good over the last bunch of years, really, however far you want to go back. And Miller, man, I thought he was going to buck that trend a little bit. I thought he was going to be an absolute beast on the blue line. We got a good one. And, up until this year, I think that he at least done fine. You could at least say maybe like years 3 and 4 with K'Andre Miller, he'd plateaued a little bit, which is less than ideal, but still like an acceptable NHL player. And this year, again, he's just fallen off, and I just don't get it. I just don't get what the problem is. Number 2, we're going to go with Alexis Lafreniere. Lafreniere and Kreider got by far the most votes for this. So Lafreniere, yeah, I mean, this is, I think a lot of the frustration with Lafreniere, on top of just his overall not so great play, it's the fact that a lot of us, myself included, really kind of stuck out our necks for Alexis Lafreniere. he starts in the NHL at the age of 18, and then he's 19 and 20, and people are expecting him to go into God mode right away, and people are getting mad at him. And, a lot of us kind of, like I said, suck up for him a little bit, and there's enough flashes there that you're excited about this player, and he'll get there eventually. The kid line in the playoffs one year was fantastic. Lafreniere last year was phenomenal in the playoffs. And I think that's where the frustration stems from, is because now all of us who went to bat for this kid, it's like he gets that contract and he takes his foot off the gas. And now it's like, what do you even say? I spent all of Alexis Lafreniere's career on here defending him, mostly defending him. Every now and then there'd be some certain concerns, or there'd be a game or a cold streak that he would have that, I and others were less than thrilled about, but we mostly stuck up for him. A lot of us Ranger fans did. And now, I just don't even know what to say at this point. He's just fallen off a cliff. And it happened immediately after he signed that contract, as many of you have pointed out. And number one, Chris Kreider. It was really a two-man race, going by the votes that you guys got on social media. And for the record, he would be my pick for this award too. And it pains me to do it because he is a long-tenured Ranger. He had that epic performance last season against the Carolina Hurricanes in Game 6, basically rescued the Rangers. The Rangers are down 3-1 in this game in the third period. The series is now 3-2 after the Rangers have been up 3-0, and we're getting into uh-oh territory here as far as being up 3-0 and letting it slip away. And Kreider just throws the team on his back, natural hat trick. They go on to win that game and make it to the conference final. And, just an absolute constant of Ranger hockey. He's been there throughout multiple different eras. As I mentioned earlier, he's been a part of a lot of deep playoff runs. He's had some big-time moments in the playoffs as well. But, I think what says it all is a point that a lot of you guys made in response to this tweet. Just look at him. What else needs to be said? Just watch this guy play hockey. Look at the effort that he's putting in. Look at the energy that he brings to the rink on a night in and night out basis. And you would think he can hate Chris Drury all he wants. You would think that just for his own pride and the love of his teammates, the love of the fans, that he would want to go out there and grind every night. And maybe the back is what's slowing him down at least somewhat. But as I said in the past, I just cannot believe that this is the way it's going to end with Chris Kreider as a member of the Rangers, because I think he's gone in the offseason. I think the Rangers are going to end up trading him. We'll see. We'll obviously cross that bridge when we get there. But it does pay me to give this award to him because he's been there through a lot of ups and downs and highs and lows, but it just hasn't been good lately. And that's putting it very mildly. So we'll call it there. Like I said, we're going to do the Stephen McDonald Extra Effort Award 2 episodes from now. I'll read some of your comments on that as well. That'll be a more uplifting, more fun episode, I think, than this one. Although in a morbid way, this was kind of fun to kind of vent here and collectively, unleash our rage on these players on the New York Rangers that have underperformed. But we'll call it there. Thank you guys, as always, for tuning in, and I will see you next time.